Welcome to LinkedIn and the Economic Graph. First, I just want to thank everyone for being here, and thank you, Code for America, for allowing us to really be a part of this incredible summit and to showcase the work that we're doing around the country and around the globe, partnering with cities around workforce development and reducing the skills gap. So before I get into the Economic Graph and what that means, introduce our illustrious panelists. I just wanted to take a survey of the room. And again, this is going to be very interactive. I'm a lawyer, so I do believe in the Socratic method. I may call on you. But how many of you are from government right now? Excellent. And when we say government, is that providers, policymakers, business development? What are you guys doing in government? Awesome. Tech? Gentlemen? Awesome. Okay. And then where is everyone else coming from? Are you guys entrepreneurs? Are you developers? Are you, in the words of my dear colleague Sohan, data geeks and nerds? Awesome. Awesome. We love that at LinkedIn. They make our company run. So welcome again. And just to give you a bit of background on the Economic Graph and what it means, it is the way in which we are digitally mapping the entire workforce around the world. Our goal is to get to 3 billion individuals in the projected workforce. Right now, we're at over 380 million individual members on the platform, over 7 million companies, well over or close to 100,000 universities and institutions of higher education that are represented on the platform, almost 50,000 skills that when taken in the aggregate can be distilled and actually aligned with some of the existing data sources. And then we have millions of conversations that are happening all the time on LinkedIn. So when you think about that, and where are my slides? I'm sorry. When you think about that, we just have an incredible visibility into into the workforce and what that means. And this is the Economic Graph. So with that, I'll introduce our panelists. First, I have Laura Moran, who is the Chief of Staff and Chief of Strategy and Development to the San Francisco Superintendent. She has over 30 years of experience in education policy. She's done a ton both on the STEM tech talent pathways in San Francisco, as well as aligning strategy and development for various stakeholders and partners across the city. She previously worked and aligned educational resources in Oakland. To her right, we have Cindy Tan, who is the project manager at Civic Action. Civic Action is a non-partisan, non-profit entity. I love the word that you used, a neutral swimming pool? Sandbox. Neutral sandbox and convener for both public, private actors in the greater Toronto area and Hamilton. And both will be talking about our work with them around the Economic Graph and ways in which they've really seen technology transform opportunity for individuals who've been either at the margins or not included in our current workforce. And with that, I'd like to open it up to both Laura and Cindy.
A little bit. So thank you. What I was so excited about when I met Nicole and the Economic Graph, I actually met her when we were doing some really great work on My Brother and Sister's Keeper, which is an initiative that many cities have signed up for about supporting our youth. And we were really wrestling with the whole idea of how the ultimate success measure on the life course framework was to get everyone by the age of 24 at 3 times federal poverty level. I think in the Bay Area, it's really 6 times if you want to be able to thrive in the city. And so we then backward mapped and looked at our seniors and started looking at how well were we doing in getting them ready to graduate on a post-secondary pathway that was going to really get them into these great STEM careers. And this aligned with another emerging project that we've been working on called the STEM Talent Pathway. So what I love about San Francisco is there's a huge support, especially in the last 3 years, from our business community to really say, you know what, we have a diversity issue, and education, you guys have the diversity that we want, but not only in the schools, but in many of our transitional age youth programs, 16 and 24. And so the economic graph really was kind of a missing piece for us, and we actually asked Nicole to co-chair our SF STEM Talent Pathway with President Les Wong of SF State and a number of the other higher eds and my boss, the superintendent of schools, to say, now that we've got companies and people like Mark Benioff saying to our students, our Black Student Union students at Mission High School, I want you to come work for me, which is this amazing commitment. Or Zynga, who's done game design for 3 years and knows these kids and wants to help with scholarships and wants to follow them through and bring them back. Now we have to do the hard work of really unpacking what are the skills, right? What are the kinds of jobs and what are then the career paths, both post-secondary, and I say post-secondary to say some of it can be college, but some of it can also be certificate programs or alternative pathways. So I just am very excited about the work we're doing. We've shared a lot of this with Oakland. Hopefully at some point this will be more of a regional initiative. And we're looking at both the connected pathway. A lot of times I think people think the students in our school districts are going to be fine. Well, they're connected, they're in school, but that's not true. So many first generation college goers fade out in the first year. Some don't even, they apply and get accepted and don't even enroll. And so what we're really looking at is we're not successful as a school district until they're on a solid path to a meaningful career that matches the kind of jobs that are really in the Bay Area. So that's just a little bit about us and how our work connects.
Great. Thank you so much. We've gotten to start an amazing collaboration with the Economic Graph team at LinkedIn, and it's been quite serendipitous. A little bit of context about Toronto. We're in the largest urban region in Canada, as a broader metropolitan area population of about 6.5 million, a very diverse population. In Toronto, 50% of our population was actually born outside of the country. And our organization, Civic Action, as Nicole mentioned, does a lot to bring leaders together to tackle some of the economic, social, and environmental challenges in our region. And we began an initiative a couple of years ago on youth employment, an issue that we thought was greatly affecting the health of our region. Like many of the other cities, and as has been discussed on some of the panels, we see a lot of inequality in youth employment outcomes in Toronto that would be similar to other areas. So we wanted to start out to identify how can we create mentoring and employment opportunities for youth who face multiple barriers to employment, and more specifically, how can we get the private sector to be part of the solution? As we were doing that, we wanted to look at how can we clarify what the actual problem is, and landed on some of the barriers, and data and information turned out to be key barriers that young people and employers are recognizing. So from whether it was the general transparency of the labor market, do young people know where jobs are, what the career pathways are, how much a job pays, how to get there? And on the other side, employers, even if they wanted to reach out to marginalized young people, did they have ways to find them? And more broadly, did we have a system to aggregate supply and demand, with a lens to what skills were in supply and what skills were in demand, so that we could, or our partners could, make strategic decisions about where to invest their training and talent resources. And we discovered that all of that was a huge gap in our region. When we looked at our numbers, we saw that 83,000 young people just in our urban area who were between 15 and 24 were not in education, employment, or training. So we're very much thinking about scale and volume. So where is there actually a large volume of jobs, and then how can we work together to get the skills aligned towards those? What was a really catalytic moment for us in our relationship with LinkedIn, we had done some great work with the LinkedIn Canada team, which was really awesome. But when Jeff Weiner, the CEO of LinkedIn, was visiting Canada for the first time, we collaborated with the LinkedIn Canada office and actually convened a group of civic leaders that we typically work with. And it was a nice, diverse mix, head of our country's largest community college, the head of human resources for one of our largest banks, the YMCA, head of the public service. And when he described the potential of the economic graph and what it could tell the urban region, our region, what it could tell the province, they all absolutely put their hand up and said, yes, please, can we somehow be part of this? And so we've now started on a project to look at what some of the skills are in our region, starting with tech skills as a concrete way to take a slice of that. and always asking how can we take action through that. And what has been one of the most significant learnings for us has been that the kind of information we're getting around skills and how to understand skills is filling this huge gap between what we have as these sort of macro level traditional labor market statistics, which are important but not timely and not applicable. And on the other hand, we have the sort of anecdotal stories. This is what this employer says. This is what we're having a hard time finding. But employers themselves are turning to us and our partners and saying, we feel anecdotally there are these issues, but we don't really know what the supply is. And so we're super excited. We're going to be releasing and sharing some of this research in the coming weeks and months. So to be able to take that slice, it's sparking new conversations among our partners about how to collaborate, work together, and address the skills gap.
Thank you, Cindy. So just additional context for everyone here, and by a showing of hands, how many of you can hear the background noise behind us? Awesome. Do we need to get that shut down? We'll call in security. So just in terms of additional context for you, we're currently working with over 40 cities around the country and the world. And our goal is to really identify ways in which, using all of this data on the platform, we can provide information similar to what Cindy and Laura outlined. Who are the top employers? What skills are they hiring for? What skills are most in demand at any given time? Moreover, given the penetration of universities and training programs on the platform, how do we best align training with those skills that are most in demand? So given that, I want to bring it back to Laura, who has incredible experience on the educational side and really understanding, to Cindy's point about anecdotal evidence, what have we seen historically and traditionally in the educational sector, and ways in which either curriculum is solely created on anecdotal evidence and not per se on actual real-time data, and how can we work collectively to strengthen that?
Great. So a couple things. One, I think a big boost for all of us in education is those states and districts that have really adopted the Common Core, because the whole point of the Common Core was to say, what is that ubiquitous set of skills and dispositions that all students need to compete in a global society in any job? Because jobs are going to be changing constantly. And so I think that whole retooling of just the basics of what we're teaching has been really important. I think the second thing that came up when I started 3 years ago, we were getting assailed almost by every single tech company coming to San Francisco, speaking at our board meeting saying, why aren't you teaching computer science? Why aren't you teaching computer science? And there was lots of coding clubs and, all kinds of things happening during, people pushing into the school day, summer, after school, and they were all really great. But we stepped back and said, okay, let's get serious about computer science. And one of the things we said to the tech companies is, look, our research shows that if we want to get more kids ready to be computer scientists and to be software engineers, if you talk to SF State, the people that run the engineering program, they need to know calculus. And so math is just as important as computer science, and they have to be paired up together. And so not as a similar course, but you can't just say, let's do a bunch of coding, and then kids get interested, and then they're going to be, the next thing you know, they'll be a UC Berkeley graduate. And so, because many of our kids in urban districts have real deficits, especially in math. So what was really good with our companies is that we started saying, we need you to invest in both, and we stepped back and said, if you invest in math, we'll look at how we need to invest in computer science. And we have a great team, and we looked across the country about really teaching computer science in school, and we've come up with a whole scope and sequence. I think we're the first district that really did a pre-K-12 scope and sequence for computer science. And we did it a little differently. You've probably heard in the news a lot of cities saying, hey, we're just going to make this a graduation requirement to do one computer science course. But here's what other countries where kids are, countries that are producing more computer scientists, they're doing STEM much earlier in the early grades. So what we're going to do is we have a board policy now where we have computer science required pre-K 8, so 20 hours a year in pre-K 5 and 45 hours a year in middle school, so that it's normalized, and so we're getting the equity issue. So it's not just if you're you're lucky enough to get to Black Girls Code, but it's if you're just going to be in it, and all that internalized threat about can I do this or not is going to be reduced because you're just taking it as a required elective along with your peers, as well as doing the math. And then at high school, what we did with our companies, and this is why the economic graph will be helpful because it's hard to do this with every single company, we really looked at our CTE programs, which are Career Tech Ed, for those who don't know the acronym, and our IT academies were dying. It was very difficult. So we brought in Zynga and LinkedIn and some other companies, and we as educators had these standards about, well, this is what we're trying to teach the kids, and these are the kinds of jobs they should be able to get. And then what we said is to the companies, we said, can you review those and give the teachers, the principals, those of us working on the curriculum, feedback about in the real world, what do they really need if they want to work with your companies? And so that kind of dialogue that we've started around career technical ed, I want to see the economic graph and the STEM talent pathway to have a much more robust discussion. Like now that we have the Common Core, which is great, and we're doing computer science, what else do we have to shift in pre-K-12? And then how does that articulate to post-secondary pathways, whether they're college or not? I'm really excited about a lot of the alternative pathways because not all kids want to go right to college, right? There are other ways to get into these exciting jobs, but we just want to really map those out. So if we're steering kids, I mean, our new thing is by the time everyone leaves 12th grade, we want to make sure they've got a solid post-secondary plan that's going to lead them to a great career in San Francisco, because if not, this is with our mayor. We're part of the affordability agenda. The diversity of our city is being pushed out, and a lot of that's happening in Oakland now too, because so many of our kids can't compete. We import 20,000 college graduates from across the world in San Francisco every year, and that's who our kids are competing with. And so if we want to get them jobs that are going to help them stay in San Francisco, live here, be the leaders, and keep our community culturally and economically diverse, we have to be much more attuned to how our curriculum and our partners in higher ed or post-secondary are really on the target. We can't afford to, just be doing general education and not have them prepared to be successful.
I think that's right. How many other educators do we have in the room? Showing of hands. What cities?
I am past educator who now has a site teaching online.
Oh, excellent.
I used to be a teacher, and I'm on the board of a job training nonprofit.
Okay. That's very helpful. I mean, I'm in absolute agreement, of course, with everything that has been said. I do think you're seeing at the state and federal level challenges between what is a traditional, training programs and how do we educate for the jobs in the future, and then those non-traditional models, right? The emergence of boot camps and accelerators. And then what do you do for those groups? How do you essentially ensure that both can coexist? Which, given everything Cindy is seeing in Toronto, I wanted to bring it back to her, given that Toronto really is an ecosystem for many of these boot camps and accelerators, and has tremendous case study value for other cities. Can you provide some context here?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been working with actually an organization that started south of the border for us, NPower, which we helped bring to Canada, and they have a fantastic employer-driven model. So we're seeing just tremendous success out of the kind of work they're doing, a short-term training and internship program that adds in social work, professional development, soft skills, social worker, professional development, and other soft skills support. And definitely seeing, growing boot camps focused on underrepresented groups, which is fantastic. But I think going forward, what I think the research we're doing is going to start is a conversation around having a mental shift around how we see tech skills. What we're seeing in the research is that tech skills are absolutely, as you folks know, not in the tech sector. And I think for those who are working in the field, they might be familiar, but we're finding for many of our stakeholders, and this includes people who are providing employment services, doing career counseling, it's not actually as evident to what extent tech skills are actually required and in demand in financial services, media and entertainment, or other important industries, and how quickly we're seeing a change in what's the base expectation of an entry-level worker to be able to learn and bring those tech skills. So if we're able to start changing that conversation and have that mental shift to seeing more of it around digital literacy and that tech skill capability rather than I think what we maybe still have in the Toronto region is a sense that some of those boot camps or programs are for people to specialize, but there's a tremendous opportunity to build our sort of whole region's capability in that field.
Absolutely. So I must admit that I cheated somewhat because I have backup here from my esteemed colleagues at LinkedIn who are all of the data scientists. I mean, essentially we have Sohan Murthy and Link Gann. And I, to Cindy's last point, wanted to have Sohan outline what are those skills that are most prevalent across industries that we're seeing, particularly in financial services. We did a study in New York where we realized, I think part of it was the presumption that the highest number of tech-related jobs would be in tech in New York, but that wasn't actually as correct as we found when we partnered with the mayor's office. Sohan, can you provide a one or two liner on that finding?
What we're finding is that a lot of industries are advancing through technology, not necessarily their basis is technology. So, for example, in media and entertainment, what would be traditionally like print media, for example, hiring web developers and iOS app developers, and entertainment, the shift towards gaming is massive. And apparent in Toronto in particular because of how many 3D animation studios there are there. So if you just bucket IT or ICT or however you want to talk about it, strictly in the sense of they're building routers and hard drives or whatever, then you're going to completely miss out on these gray area type tech skills that are increasingly being found in what on the surface would be very creative type roles. And we're finding that to be the case in Toronto and in New York, where there are that media aspect has always been there, but now they're evolving.
Thank you. And finally, to those who are being left behind, I know Laura spoke a bit about that, particularly with the STEM talent pathways in San Francisco. We wanted to get a bit more into that. Who are we finding generally not being included in these discussions and why? And then I'd love to open it up to the audience for additional context and case studies here, given all of your vast experience. First, starting with Mindy, after Laura and Cindy chime in.
So I think, I have this one pager that I can send out afterwards if people are interested, but it was kind of the latest diversity scorecard of all the major companies kind of in the Bay Area, including LinkedIn, Twitter, Google, et cetera, and the diversity numbers are abysmal. I think you could fit all the African American people in one plane. It's just terrible. So in particular, African American, Latinos, and females are being completely left behind. And so for us, that's a huge issue. And it's interesting because so many of the tech companies want to be partnering with us and want to be in our schools. It's just been this really interesting back and forth. And again, I totally agree that not all the tech kind of jobs are in tech. But these are really wonderful, high-paying, exciting, innovative jobs that a lot of our students would like to be in, and they're like bringing our students down and giving them tours. And so we're starting to have some really honest conversation about, you're publishing your diversity numbers. What's your commitment to diversity? And is your commitment, and so this is what we're going to challenge, I think the companies, and LinkedIn's already kind of mulling this over and is very positive, and so is Salesforce, but saying, are you willing to make some kind of pledge to hire our kids and to bring them into if this is what they want, into this mainstream? And it's very interesting because a couple of the companies are really stepping up because, they've been doing programs like Year Up. They've been doing, having our interns. Salesforce had 46 high school interns this summer. They had never done that. And we developed a program called Salesforce Summer. And all the people loved the interns. They're like, oh my God, I want them to come back. They were fantastic. And the kids actually, within 5 weeks, were speaking with such confidence and said, this is what I want my career to be. And actually really finding out, oh, it's a marketing job. I don't have to be a programmer, right? There were so many things they could do. But I think that, some other tech companies are like, yeah, we want to, we want to do a few things, but we're really not, they're not really there, frankly, in terms of making that commitment. And one of the things I would like to see San Francisco be is one of the first cities that figures out how to create a true San Francisco promise for our youth. And a lot of cities have done a promise, like, a Long Beach promise, which is, hey, if you graduate with this grade point average, you'll get into the Cal State, right, university. And so that's great. I think it's a little old school. I think that what the promise should be is that we want to solve our diversity issue by having a certain percentage of the women, African American, Latino, first generation Asian kids really work in our company, and we're willing to even create bridge programs to allow that to happen, because that was my conversation with a company, to remain nameless right now, that we had a very heated debate with yesterday, who said, look, it's, hiring decisions are very decentralized. So even if we up here say, oh yeah, we want to hire this group of kids that we've been investing in locally, how do you manage that? How do you dictate that? Because many tech companies have a very free and open kind of culture and don't want to do that. And I said, well, there's all this money coming in apprenticeship money, which I don't think we've really thought about or tapped into. So as we really start identifying what are these different jobs and the skills, and again, this might be really the next, how do we take the boot camp concept and match it with true apprenticeships that really help students, both in high school and post-secondary, be really indoctrinated or invited into the culture, get to practice these skills, get the support they need to diversify. And I think that's what it's just going to take. And, most tech companies say, well, we're very libertarian. This just kind of cuts across our grain. And I'm like, okay, I get it, but are we committed or not to this group of youth and really doing something different? So that's what I'm both nervous and excited about, is this SF STEM Talent Pathway is going to be a table for us to have these really hard conversations with each other and see if, and I don't know what the solution is, but I'm hoping that by setting a collective impact table, we're going to come up with a breakthrough solution of how to address this issue.
And I do think beyond youth and beyond diversity, one area we're hearing cities talk a lot about, particularly San Jose and Sacramento and the Bay Area, what about this aging workforce? What about those individuals who are being fully displaced by millennials or younger people who require a lower salary, frankly? I don't have to have you on, pushing out tons of equity and really weighing on some of our coffers in the same way as the millennials would. So what does that mean for this aging workforce? And Cindy, can you talk a bit about those dynamics, both in Toronto and what you're seeing in Hamilton?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in the Toronto labor market, we have a couple of unique characteristics. And one is that one of our disproportionately unemployed groups are actually internationally trained professionals. So they are individuals who have been able to immigrate to Canada with a very high degree of training, but are unable to break into the local labor market, end up being unemployed and underemployed. And that really just underscores that as much as it's about the hard skills, it's actually also about the culture of the labor market and the culture of employers. So to the extent that we can bridge, build those connections, build those networks and relationships in a way that shifts the mentality and attitude of employers to see what changes they can make, that has to be a part of the solution. We know that it's not the skills alone, but in some ways technology helps enable that, whether it's through LinkedIn or other platforms that help facilitate those connections. And we're actually, as part of our broader work on youth employment, planning to embark on a deep dive into HR practices. We're finding that in the last few years in our region, there has been a growing commitment, maybe similar to what you've described, where employers recognize the importance of being more inclusive for youth and addressing some of those challenges. But they're actually saying, well, this is how our HR system works right now. We don't really know. That's just the way it is. So we're looking to see how can we document some of those best practices, the creative ways that employers can take to find, recruit, onboard, and support people that they haven't traditionally worked with. And those practices will build on some of the lessons we've gained in our region, actually creating opportunity for older internationally trained professionals. So often we know inclusive hiring practices benefit multiple groups, and being able to then match that back to investing in skills and asking employers to invest in skills as well. Hopefully that collaboration will see results.
Terrific. Thank you, guys. I'm going to turn it over to the audience for questions, starting with Mindy Aronoff from BayVac and Mike Masserman from Lyft. Mike Geary, actually. I'm sorry, Mike. Mike McGarry. I think you guys get that often. But I'm very curious, given the rise in the gig economy and the shared economy, what are the trends that you're seeing, and how does this relate to this displacement of the workforce or this expanding need to ensure that we're preparing for the skills that are most in demand and aligning employer demand with those skills? Mike, Mindy, do you guys want to chime in?
Gentlemen first.
Come on, Mike.
Well, I work at a nonprofit called BayVac, Bay Area Video Coalition. We're in San Francisco, 40 years old. I teach a class called Life Begins at 50 because there's a lot of people that come in and say, Twitter's never gonna hire me. Thank you. And they're probably right. Twitter's probably not gonna hire them, but we also know that by the year 2020, 40% of Americans will be independent contractors. And that's where I suggest this population that is aging out start to focus their energies.
And how is BayVac helping with that?
I was going to just hand this, but
To
no.
Mike? Oh, awesome.
We are training people. We train about 250 to get back into the tech industry. We train about 6,000 people total. So we're training. The reason that the city of San Francisco chose us to be the sector operator for Tech SF, which is part of Tech Hire, is because we've been training employees from Pixar and Lucas and Pandora and Wells Fargo and San Francisco Symphony and hundreds and hundreds of companies for the last 16 years. So we have relationships with industry and it really helps. We know exactly what employers want their employees to know because we're very flexible. As soon as they tell us one weekend, we wish you were teaching this, and we go find an instructor and do it. We have to get it on the eligible training provider list for the government, but then, well, we've got it made.
I'm right in front of the speaker too. I think one of the interesting things about the gig economy and where this kind of fits in is the uncertainty around exactly how this is going to manifest itself going forward in terms of the shape of the workforce in general and where these workers fit into how we think about labor as a commodity and how we think about the workforce in general, especially in the U.S. Overall. And I very quickly, this is like back in my college days in the lecture hall, I got called on. So I went and found the Upwork study that came out today, which I have not had the full chance to dig into, but there's a couple top line numbers there that are really interesting. 53.7 million Americans right now are identified as freelancers. And that's everybody from creative consultants and designers and freelance engineers to Uber drivers and Lyft drivers and people like that, and everywhere in between. And I think that's a really important point to focus on. The coming battle for these guys is going to be a regulatory fight But that's going to affect how these companies do business as well, because so many of the companies that we're talking about now are linking in with these type of freelancers and doing work beyond the ones that we all see every day. But the other part that's striking is that 50% of freelancers that were interviewed in the study said they wouldn't take a job if it was offered to them. So I think what you're going to see is more and more moving this way, up and down the age graph, right? It's not just bespectacled youths roaming around Palo Alto on skateboards that say, oh, I'll work for this startup 3 days a week and another one. But it's, honestly, it's people like my father who's 65 and has a tech background but can't get a job. Well, he's the president of the local city council, but the nice people of Gloucester, Massachusetts elected him to that. But he can't get like a real non-political job because he's older, but he's able to consult and freelance in that way. So I think that's particularly interesting to see. But how that interaction is going to change and how those numbers then interface with what you're building on a curriculum level and how you're preparing students to enter a workforce that is much more nebulous than even when I entered the workforce, which is more years ago than I care to admit. And how it just is continuing to shift is going to be really interesting to see as well.
Thank you, Mike.
They start out wanting to be independent contractors, They want a lot more freedom. This is our experience anyway. It's an old school millennial that wants to get a full-time job somewhere. Typically, they want to go their own route.
How many millennials are in the audience? Oh, great. I have a few questions. Awesome.
I have a question, but I guess I'm an old school millennial too.
Nice. All right, let's start with your question.
And I do have to say thank you, Nicole, because I found my job on LinkedIn. True story. Thanks to you guys as well. So my question is primarily for Laura. I work in ed policy at the city of West Sacramento. And now with the first and second round of the California Career Pathways Trust implemented throughout the state, and we're seeing some dividends from that. And the $400 million for the CTE incentive grants going to be coming online in the next 2 to 4 weeks. How do we really create momentum for work-based learning opportunities that can act as on-ramps to tech companies and other companies as well, and really put our ears to the ground for how we can leverage these academies and career pipelines that have been integrated into our schools, through this substantial state investment, looking at other resources like the economic graph to really be able to have, there's a lot of language for it. You said apprenticeships, which is, used in Washington a lot. But how do we create these work-based learning opportunities that really prepare students with the skills that are in demand by your local and regional employers to really be able to maximize the investment that we've put in?
It's a great question. We're really excited. We got the California Career Pathways Trust grant this year, and we're working with City College, and the 2 areas we picked are ICT, tech, and life sciences. And so the purpose of the California Career Pathway Trust, for those that don't know it, it's how do you strengthen the career tech ed programs are usually like 2-year academy programs that are an elective students take that give them real life work experience. And then how do we better articulate those to certificate programs at City College if that student says, I really love this, life science thing, I want to continue to work. Or, the PUC is an example, is a really great partner of ours. There's some really great jobs there. And so looking at where do the kids go after they do kind of an environmental science academy? So for us, this is huge. I will say that one of the things we're looking at with this grant is how to move beyond the sort of older box of career tech ed, because it's an elective. And this may get too boring for people who aren't in education, but the whole transition to having A through G, the UC graduation the UC requirements have now become the graduation requirements of a lot of school districts to help make the curriculum more rigorous. But what it has done in an underfunded state like California, where you only have a 6-period day, it's pushing electives out, which is pushing out the opportunity to do work-based learning, because now, this is just an elective and there's 20 electives you could take. And so we're not seeing the same diversity in our CT academies. as we want. So what we're doing is we're really trying to change this. So again, I'll mention this partnership with Zynga because they've been incredible. They've worked with us for 3 years. They've helped us develop their curriculum. The people who work at Zynga actually come in and actually help teach the course. The course, actually, the grade the kids get is not from the teacher. It's really from the game designers who are judging the pitches the students are giving them about the games they're designing. So we have pitch night in the beginning, and then they show their games, mid-year, end of year. And to me, that's what you want, is kids starting to get that real life work experience and getting real feedback from folks in the workforce around something they love and they're passionate about. And the Zynga Game Design Academy attracted a whole group of kids who computer science is like the Trojan horse inside that class. So we teach them Python and Java and everything else, but they don't realize it because first they have to design the game and think about the art, and they're really excited. And then there it is. Oh, now we've got to code this. And so I just want to do more of that. We have an exciting thing we're looking at. We'd like to create an accelerator center at the new shipyard. So we're having some conversations with the mayor about this and our OEWD about actually having a center where SFUSD students, juniors and seniors, can do a year or two half day at this accelerator, which is in the business community, right? So all these STEM startups are going to be there. Our students will go there for classes, but also be doing their internships with the companies. The companies get subsidized rent for doing the internships. It's kind of a cool model and then San Francisco State will be there in City College to also do a dual enrollment. So if kids want to go to college, they're already ready. So that's where we're trying to blur the lines between our organizations and have these accelerators in kind of a different way. So I'm really excited about that as well.
And I would say I don't even know if you need to be formal accelerators. We have a partnership with Europe, one of the nonprofits throughout the Bay Area, and we were really the first company to partner with them and to hire Europe students to dedicate resources to actually working to revamp parts of their curriculum. Sohan worked on this initiative where we essentially analyzed their models, and we did a cybersecurity analysis around Europe, around open jobs across the Bay Area. This was several years ago, so this preceded me, and I'll defer to Sohan on it. But again, there are innovative models that aren't solely dependent on apprenticeships and boot camps, where you can really work through those programs to assure that curriculum is aligned appropriately and that students are prepared such that you're really harnessing that passion and that interest and ensuring that they're positioned to have a long-term career, either in cybersecurity or something else. Other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, Cindy.
I just want to comment quickly. Yeah, actually, in Toronto, it's very new, but we're seeing our city government really step forward as a champion of work-based learning. The City of Toronto government employs about 50,000 people, and they are really passing through council, through political and bureaucratic channels, a commitment to being a place for work-based learning. And it's more for people who have fallen out of education or have completed education and are not entering into the next steps of their career. And drawing back to actually some of the discussions that have emerged from our partners around the economic graph research, there is that bigger question around career pathways for marginalized young people. And so anecdotally, we're hearing, aren't public institutions, public sector employers actually a place for a soft on-ramp for people to get into these roles. We have the Toronto Police Service as one of our partners, and that's their observation that they're seeing actually the police service is a great place for people to start their IT roles. They stay with them for 5 years and they move on. It's causing them to shift their thinking because they're saying, well, we're used to having people join us for 30 years. We're not actually prepared to lose people. So it's a discussion that's happening. But if you imagine all the public sector employers coming together and saying, we have a commitment to supporting work-based learning, internships, and getting people into careers in our organizations or elsewhere, that's already a huge base to build experience.
So I'm a software engineer in SF, and no stranger to the fertility that is in the tech market right now. But all that being said, I'm thinking about this data set. I'm thinking about a lot of what we've discussed, and it's very STEM centric. And purely from the personalities of people that I've worked with, I recognize that doesn't work for everybody. It really doesn't. And there are a lot of people who have other callings and other vocations that even don't fall into the broadly white collar category. But then as in my experience using LinkedIn, that's very much what LinkedIn is about. How do you think about non-white collar jobs in terms of this data set and other data sets, such that when you have 65,000 marginalized youth, you can certainly give them the opportunity to pursue STEM, which I think is a new thing that hasn't been given to a lot of people, but also identify how these data sets give other opportunities and give other incentives for them to find what they should be doing or what they would like to be doing.
Thank you, Mark. We get that question quite a bit because, yes, the platform currently skews professional, and yes, it currently skews a little bit more tech-related positions than non-tech. Our goal and the vision of the economic graph is to ensure that we are providing opportunity for every member of the workforce. And what you're seeing as we work city by city, for instance, we had a presentation this morning with BayVac. We have 3.8 million individuals in the Bay Area alone on the platform. And so while that may skew professional, our goal is to ensure that through partnerships with cities, with workforce investment boards, with the various community colleges and the civic partners, and the superintendent's office, of course, that we can get more middle skill and frontline workers on the platform. That's taken several initiatives and several iterations to get there. I think one, we have a partnership currently underway with the Markle Foundation, where just this past June, we announced an engagement in both Phoenix and Denver to currently examine ways in which, through product realignment, we can ensure that we are a more attractive platform to the middle skill and frontline workers. So that is something that we are currently examining, and we're very much driving towards. That is our big push right now, because we recognize that we have the jobs, over 7 million of them right now on the platform. Our goal is to get as many of those jobs as possible and as many of those guys that you're talking about so that we can then connect them to the jobs. And then most recently, through acquisition of Lynda, our goal is to ensure that LinkedIn can become that one place where even if you don't have the job of choice right now, Mark, or Cindy or Nicole, ideally we can figure out together what are those skills needed to get that job of choice, what institutions are best positioned to help you get there, whether it's the non-traditional training programs, the accelerators and the boot camps, and then through those skill sets, help you get that job all at once. And so it is a big vision, but it is everything we're working towards every single day. Our CEO is actually on Capitol Hill right now talking about the economic graph with all of the senators. He's had a number of meetings today, and this is something that we are committed to, and we look forward to your help on this. We're not going to get there alone. And so please give us feedback. We look forward to additional partnerships with cities to help us get there. And that's why our work with San Francisco and Toronto, just to name a few, are absolutely critical to that vision.
That sounds like a super cool vision. Rock on. Oh, do the cities have anything to say on that point of data sets for other categories and thinking beyond STEM, even in the Bay Area?
Yeah, and let me say this, we are thinking beyond STEM. I mean, our thing as educators is we want students to find their spark, because if you find what you love and you're passionate about, but what that means back to work-based learning, I'd like to see every high school student get 2 to 3 work-based learning experiences so they could figure out what their passion is, right? Before then they, chart a course. I would just say, why we're pushing on STEM, to be honest with you, is we're also going to create a program in our own organization around teachers. There's a huge teacher shortage, and there's a lot of people who'd love to be teachers, but it doesn't pay very well, and you can't live in San Francisco at a starting teacher salary. So we have a Grow Your Own Teacher program we're going to be starting. We're actually doing tech inside our own organization. So we're modeling too as a city government in San Francisco, hiring kids in those pathways. We have a facilities and grounds pathway we're doing. There's a great city build program if you want to go into the construction field. I just feel like too many kids haven't been exposed early enough on to even see if they have an interest. And there's just too many messages saying this isn't cool, this isn't for you. I don't know if you know all the research on internalized stereotype threat, right? So many of our kids have that, girls have that around math. And so we as educators are saying, how do we reduce that stereotype threat and reduce our own implicit bias that aligns with that stereotype threat? And part of it, that's why we're saying, if you teach computer science to all kids and it's just normal and it's fun and it's gaming, then it's like, oh, I'm kind of good at this. Doesn't mean we want everyone to be a computer scientist. Believe me, we don't. We're big in the arts. We teach everyone. We have art selectives. We have dance and movement. We have all of these things, but what we're trying to do is counterbalance where kids have been sorted out of this. And I think a lot of companies are saying, Apple's thing is inclusion equals innovation. I mean, at a certain point, if you're not going to have an inclusive or diverse workforce, doesn't that at some point diminish the kind of innovation and creativity? But there's a lot of work, just like we're trying to change our culture and our systems, companies have to change that too. Well, how do you become a more welcoming environment? A lot of people get jobs and then don't feel comfortable and leave. And maybe that's why the gig society will be better for a lot of our kids and not just older folks, but this group too. So we're looking at all of it, but we're trying to correct for something that we think has not been dealt with very well in this country, and we've been working on it for a while.
For young people in Ontario, even in I was just looking this up yesterday, even in the bottom quartile of income, it's something like in the high 90%, in the high 90s, access internet on a regular basis. So for young people now, being online is part of their identity. It's how they experience the world, even if it's not part of their career. When more and more connections and opportunities are going to be made online, we're very concerned that our marginalized young people will get further left behind because there's an idea, well, a tool like LinkedIn is not for you. It's white collar jobs and you shouldn't, don't even worry about it. So we actually, how we began collaborating with LinkedIn was we saw on the topic of transparency and young people getting connected to understanding what the labor market looks like. We saw no need to reinvent a tool, create some new app or anything like that. LinkedIn has great market penetration in Canada. So we discovered that those who are actually providing job counseling or doing youth outreach work for young people in communities, we found that a lot of those people actually themselves don't know how to use a tool like LinkedIn. So we did a whole series of train the trainer activities where we just actually helped people who are currently teaching young people how to make a resume and a cover letter, saying, actually, why don't you learn how to teach young people how to create a LinkedIn profile and benefit from all of those things that actually overcome some of the barriers they face, accumulating recommendations, accumulating connections. We might have our governments invest in young people getting summer jobs, all kinds of programs. They leave those. If you leave those without retaining that permanent record of connections, it's a missed opportunity. So definitely 100%. I think that when that data set becomes even more full, it's going to be really powerful.
I was just also going to say that's what we're doing with our students is really teaching them how to build a LinkedIn profile, not so much just to get online, but how do you build your social capital? So if you have that summer job, how do you friend as many people as you can, right? Or invite people and they become part of your social capital. And so that's another very important skill that we're working on. We introduced it with our 12th graders this year. We want to integrate it with our 9th grade college and career readiness course. And then that will help diversify, I think, LinkedIn if we're doing that on our end.
Yeah. So I know in the interest of time, there were 3 questions. If we could just have them all back to back, and then in our answers, we'll combine answers.
Sure. Just a quick question for LinkedIn. How open is the economic graph data? Is it accessible to individuals, or is it something that you have to kind of be a government agency to get your eyes on? Because I think if it were something that was exposed to even the young people that have access to the internet and they could see for themselves, this is where the jobs are, or these are the kinds of skills I need, not because school tells me, but because I can see that the numbers are there, and also show the parents to help them guide their kids. So the question is how open and accessible is the data?
Okay, I'll come back to that.
Hi, I'm from Code for Pakistan, and I had a question about what's LinkedIn's strategy in order to reach out in emerging markets, because the current situation in Pakistan is that almost all professionals have a LinkedIn account, but no one is actually using it to find the jobs because not a lot of jobs are being posted there. So our default approach is to actually revert to the job portals, which is not effective at all, because then we are unable to find the job of our interest and actually look at the people behind those jobs. So one's that, and the other one is actually being a business owner. What's the benefit for me apart from actually advertising jobs? Do I get through the economic graph and through whatever the work you are doing at any level? Do you guys have an approach which helps businesses to connect with other businesses to form partnerships and things like that?
Of course. Okay.
Hi, I was wondering what LinkedIn has learned about skills that are wanted that cut across all types of jobs, like skills like writing or collaboration or critical thinking, like things that maybe get lost in thinking about the technology jobs, but are really important across all jobs, no matter what you're doing.
Okay. So I think for the first two questions, I will absolutely answer those in turn. And then for the last question, I'll defer to my colleague, Lincoln, who is lead on all of our skills work. He's excellent. First, in terms of how open is the data, we are currently working in over 40 cities around the country and the world. Our goal right now, while this isn't open to individuals, there are aspects of it on the platform that are absolutely accessible to any individual. So first, I'd say for students in particular, we have a university finder. It's essentially an ecosystem where any student, and I hope you guys will take down the university finder note for the students who are in your respective lives. But essentially, if you are interested in a career, if you're interested in working at a particular company, you can go on the platform right now and have a sense of, by company, where were the alums, what schools did the individuals in that company typically go to, what majors did they study, and work your way backwards such that you can essentially have a sense of how to create a pathway for your dream career. I want to be an astrophysicist. I know that the majority of astrophysicists went to MIT. So let me work my way backwards, and maybe I can get a job at Google, and I'll find those alums right now who went to MIT and are working at Google. You can do that all right now on the platform. Other areas that are absolutely open for individuals, of course, are jobs. You can access open jobs. We're finding that for purposes of the economic graph, the data that we've given in the aggregate, right now our partnerships with cities and workforce investment boards and civic partners are critical because we're still feeding into that data. And I do think over time the goal is to bring it to scale and make it more available to individuals. But that is something we're working through. To the question about emerging markets and Pakistan in particular, we're in over 100 plus countries around the world right now. We have our platform is currently available in over 24 languages. So those are the ways in which we are penetrating emerging countries and emerging markets. In terms of Pakistan, I don't have the specific numbers on what it looks like on the platform, but I think one of my colleagues, we could actually pull it up and give you a sense offline. But we do have individuals in the company who are tracking this very closely and identifying ways in which, either through sales, through marketing, through partnerships with the economic graph team, I'm on the policy team, through partnerships with LinkedIn for Good, our foundation arm. Who are those civic partners and government officials, essentially, that we can work to expand the branding of LinkedIn in Pakistan, ensure that we're getting more of the members on the platform, providing value in a sustainable way to get them coming back. I think the other part of it really is publishing. So to the extent that we get more individuals publishing who represent that market, who represent that region, then you find the value. Then we're not just the platform to get the job, but we are really the platform where you're seeing content. You see how to really access leadership skills, how to develop to become the best leader in Pakistan. So I hope that answers the question, and happy to provide more context. And Link will take on the question on skills, if that's okay.
Sure. Hi, I'm Link Gan. I'm a researcher here at LinkedIn. So I think Nicole may have mentioned earlier, we have like 45,000 to 50,000 individual skills that members have told us that they have. And within that, obviously there's a wide range that it covers, going from very technical related skills, things that, you find on a lot of, software engineer and programmers profiles to, artists and writers, et cetera. So, we cover the whole spectrum. I think there is still probably a subset of skills that we aren't, capturing today, but we're hoping that over time we'll be able to collect and create a more comprehensive skills database. But skills are one of those areas where it's easy to identify hard skills, right? So if I know a particular software or if I know a particular tool, it's very easy for me to just say I know that and I can add that to my profile. But when it comes to things that are a little bit softer or it takes maybe other people to help validate that, things like collaboration, things like interpersonal skills and communication skills. I think that those are just as valuable, if not more valuable, in a work context, right? And but people don't. What we've seen is that that's not as common, I would say, or people are less likely to put all those individual skills because it's very hard to, I guess, even just realize that you have those skills and those are important to your job. And so, because of this, right, we're trying to crack the code in identifying, even within the softer set, like how do we surface those things that people are missing, that we could help and train and recommend. And like through the acquisition of Lynda actually offers a lot of those kinds of courses around like time management skills and interpersonal skills and how to write an email, how to communicate. And so we're hoping that combined with what people have told us, we can sort of help bridge maybe that gap between the harder skills that you need for a job and also some of the softer skills.
And just to follow up, I think we're seeing maybe at a broad level, it's still kind of difficult for us to see what are the skills that are broadly applicable that are not directly related to their role. Like if you take it a step down and look at specific occupations, like marketing, for example, one of the trends that we're seeing amongst marketers that are getting hired, at least at a higher clip, tend to also have skills related to like statistical analysis and data mining. Or skills related to like search engine marketing. So we're starting to see some trends where, on paper, you wouldn't really see any relationship to this occupation, but people who happen to have these, unrelated skills tend to be more marketable or tend to be more in demand. So marketing is an example. I think another one is project management. Where we see the same thing, project managers that also have, some sort of like, critical like data analysis or, research type backgrounds. That the confluence of being a very good project manager, but then also having some sort of experience in like a research type field, allows them. They become imminently more marketable. Now it's difficult for us to say. For all project managers, you have some research background. It could just be an outcome of the field that they're in. But understanding that there's a confluence of, somewhat unrelated skills in these areas is something that we're acting on when it comes to making recommendations to our users as to, what potentially they should pursue if they don't know it yet.
Terrific. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. Thank you for all your support for what we're doing. Continue to follow us on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.